Before this video starts, I want to thank you all for your continued support. Over the last couple of months, we have grown exponentially and are nearly at that sweet 200,000 sub count. Join us in our quest to hit that next big milestone. Hit that subscribe button if you love the channel and haven't already. We greatly appreciate everything you guys do to make sure this channel stays afloat. Now, let's get on with the video. Recently, both Jiff and I turned 22, and the channel itself turned 7 years old, and it had us all nostalgic. The older we get, the more we reflect on the things that directly or indirectly inspired all of our interests. I think it's the same for all you guys watching too. The main demographic for our channel is people the same age as us, and it's interesting to see all of your comments whenever we tackle nostalgic subjects. Today we want to grab the lowest hanging fruit of all when it comes to nostalgia for people our age. Flash games. In our old internet series, we explore the allure of things we were too young to experience. But for this video, I want to kick back and talk about my personal experiences with the internet that is old now, which blows my mind.
Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom.
Of course, we aren't the first channel to discuss and reminisce about old Flash games, but I just want this to be a chiller video than usual, so let's just get right into it. I know a lot of you guys will recognize most of these, but hopefully I'm able to bring some new talking points to the table. Without further ado, let's check out some old Flash games together. Alright, where do I even start with something like this? I jumped around so many Flash sites as a kid, whether it was free time in school, at home, or blatantly ignoring my schoolwork and sneaking a quick game while the teacher wasn't looking. I know damn well a shared experience for all of us is trying to sneak in a game and thinking you're slick until you feel the teacher's hand on your shoulder and immediately are asked to shut down your computer. I've played survival horror a ton, and nothing ever will top getting caught on Coolmathgames when you're supposed to be writing a book report on mice and men. I think Coolmathgames might actually be the perfect place to start for a video like this. It might be the most obvious answer, but in a video all about my personal experiences, Coolmath deserves a nice section dedicated to it. Coolmathgames was the iconic spot for pretty much every kid in school. The website was never blocked and had the easiest games to pick up and play for a couple of minutes. I'm pretty sure most of you guys know what I mean when I say it was never blocked, but for those who did not go through that struggle, here's a quick explanation since I will be mentioning this throughout the video. School Wi-Fi would have tons of restrictions on it and blocked plenty of websites, some that deserved it and some that just felt strange. Of course, most of the gaming websites were blocked, save for a few notable ones like Coolmath. Kids would make new websites that house Flash games to attempt to get around these issues, and they would always wind up getting blocked anyways. Thankfully, Coolmathgames was always around. Some of these games that I sunk hours into were things like Snake and of course the Run series of games, but the ones I really never saw anybody playing were things like Lemonade Stand and Johnny Upgrade. Lemonade Stand was such a fun way to experience something we all wanted as kids, a functioning lemonade stand. Make money, buy products, and attempt to become richer for the next playthrough. Anybody who played this definitely remembers marking up the prices as high as possible just to see how you would do. Johnny Upgrade was another math-centric game, which is hilarious because math was and still is the bane of my existence. Johnny Upgrade was so cool, it was basically a speedrun challenge. You have to upgrade Johnny and memorize the singular level to finally complete the game. It was so fun contemplating on if I wanted more firepower or more time and using your resources in the most strategic way possible. Games like Block Swords genuinely affected me mentally, and I think any anger problems I have stem from that game. I remember playing tons of chess on Coolmathgames as well, give a kid bright, colorful, fast-paced games, and I guess me being lame, I still might pick chess on occasion. Of course, the iconic Papa's Aria games were massive headliners for the site. There's way too many of them to count, but the ones I remember playing the most were the Pizzeria and Wingeria variants. Definitely make sure to let me know which one of these was your favorites in the comments. Coolmathgames was the benchmark for Flash games for me and my friends as kids, but it was far from the only site we spent our time on. The craziest thing about Coolmath is the fact that it's still completely operational. It still looks and plays all the same games the same way it did all those years ago. If you haven't been there in ages, open up Pandora's nostalgic box and get back to your pizzeria. There's just so many sites to choose from. I think my best course of action is another extremely popular site, one that had more than just Flash games, one that probably deserves its own entire video, a site I visited every day for years. Any guesses? I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to think. Yeah, come on, it had to be Lego.com. This site, of course, is ripe with nostalgia, and of course, like I mentioned, did not only have games. It had sets you could purchase, character bios, alternative builds, and all sorts of activities. I feel like this site stands alone usually when talking about Flash games, but I'd be remiss not to mention Lego.com, as it was genuinely the site I think I spent the most time on. From the years of 2008 to around 2012, I visited Lego.com daily. Between those years, I played tons of games. The first one that comes to mind is the LEGO Indiana Jones Adventures. LEGO Indiana Jones was one of the best themes, and its recent return was nothing short of glorious. Our first introduction to LEGO Indiana Jones gave us a fantastic action-adventure side-scroller, sliding under spiders and leaping over spikes while running from the boulder. The one thing I remember about this game was just how tight the controls were. It had a fantastic interface as well and scratched the Indiana Jones adventure itch before I had even gotten the full LEGO game for the Wii. The next game I remember playing over and over again was Power Miners Lava Showdown. Power Miners is in my top 3 favorite LEGO themes of all time, and the lava-themed second wave still has some of my favorite LEGO designs, period. The game is simple, at least it looks that way as an adult, but as a kid I never knew what was going on. It sort of looks like Pac-Man where you have to imprison all the rock monsters, but for some reason as a child this one broke my brain. Despite that, I played it all the time and just enjoyed being enveloped by the Power Miners atmosphere. What would a section all about Lego.com be without mentioning LEGO Star Wars? And my LEGO Star Wars nostalgia is the best nostalgia because mine is the Clone Wars. Now technically the LEGO Clone Wars game I played over and over was not a Flash game, but I think we can all make an exception because the game, The Search for R2-D2, was just plain awesome. Like I said, this wasn't actually a Flash game, it ran in the Unity engine, and it was my first real experience learning that computers could play games similar to what I played on my consoles. In this game, you had awesome sprawling levels with 4 characters to choose from. I remember not getting very far, but even the tutorial world was awesome, battling along as Anakin Skywalker in a Separatist cruiser. Lego.com really hit the nail on the head when it comes to brand synergy. You'd have your LEGO sets, LEGO Star Wars sheets, LEGO Castle shirt, while playing some LEGO Space Police Flash games. I wish we could spend more time here, but there's of course plenty more Flash games we want to get to. I am a huge LEGO fan, and I know there's tons of you out there as well. If you want an entire video dedicated to Lego.com nostalgia, let me know in the comments. There was one more site that ruled my youth before we move on to talking about some of the random games we found scattered across the internet. That site, of course, being miniclip.com. Miniclip was my personal favorite Flash game site. It had it all. Side-scrollers, action shooters, strategy, you name it, Miniclip had it. I vividly remember my cousin showing me Miniclip and it blew my mind. My possible first gaming addiction ever had to be Raft Wars. In this game, you and your baby brother are harassed by Vikings, pirates, gangsters, and your next door neighbors at the beach. There's only one way to enjoy your chill day off at the beach, and that's to have a raft war. Shooting your water gun cannon blindly, hoping to knock enemies off their raft and declare final victory. I poured hours into this game as a kid and just felt that the combat was so satisfying. I took a break while writing this segment just to go and play the game again, and man, it is still so satisfying and fun. It's incredible how the old saying, less is more, rings true for decades-old Flash games. I vividly remember seeing advertisements for South Park and thinking it was an animated Raft Wars show. It definitely wasn't a coincidence that the characters in the game look similar, I'm sure. My dad had to assure me that South Park was definitely not a kid-friendly show about the adventures of Raft Wars. One of my other true loves as a child had to be Icebreaker. Icebreaker was a physics puzzle game where you had to cut down frozen Vikings in large blocks of ice and escort them to their ships. I just remember adoring the physics of this game and how fun it was to cut the ice. I guess you're starting to notice a trend in my favorite games all being very satisfying and physics-based. Icebreaker was no joke either, it became a pretty cutthroat puzzle game in the later stages. This is one that I'll come back to every couple of months. If I recall correctly, it was the first game I ever played on Miniclip, and from there my fate was sealed. I played tons of one-off games, but to round out my Miniclip Holy Trinity, the last game I want to talk about that Miniclip hosted is Commando Assault. This game, for lack of a better term, was metal as fuck. Yeah, it's that serious. This game was a side-scrolling shooter where you had to churn out troops and tanks from your side to overpower the enemy's tanks and troops on their side. I just remember this game feeling so realistic. One of my favorite things in shooter games is commanding an army. I always remember those levels of Halo where you had ODST or Marines at your side, and Commando Assault gave that vibe of an entire army fighting for dominance. The game has incredible graphics. It looks like an upgraded version of Contra you'd see on the Sega Genesis. The game nails that breakneck speed you want from a Contra-style shoot-'em-up too. This game also gave me tons of issues as a kid. This was not for the faint of heart. I can't remember if I did ever beat the game, but it's definitely possible. I definitely sunk countless hours into it. This might have actually been my first real violent shooter game too. Enemies explode in a glorious gory pile, and vehicles scatter the landscape with shrapnel. Shooter games are still my one and only, and I think Star Wars definitely gave me my first lust for guns and guts, but Commando Assault truly cemented that feeling in my underdeveloped 7-year-old brain. Miniclip to me was the benchmark. It was always banned at school, but it was something I looked forward to when I got home. Miniclip unfortunately suffered a different fate to Coolmath. The website we knew is gone and only hosts a few multiplayer games like pool and cards. All the games I mentioned are still very much playable, but that beautiful interface I loved is gone. That's definitely going to do it in terms of talking about specific websites. I played games on so many sites, but when I think of nostalgic Flash games, my mind goes straight to Coolmath, Lego, or Miniclip. We aren't done just yet. There's a bunch of games that I played scattered across the internet. So let's get into my nostalgic bargain bin of Flash games. The first random game I want to talk about is something I don't really think was too popular: Haunt the House. This game was awesome. You play as a silly specter in a house you've long since died in, and now some rude millionaire is now throwing an extravagant party there. The gameplay is really fun. You take control of the ghosts and you have to possess a multitude of different things in the house in an attempt to spook all the guests out. There's a sanity meter, but not for you. You have to balance the terror across the house. The goal is to kick out all 30 guests, but you don't want them to be too terrified they'll jump out the window. This was a fantastic game I always played during my computer class in school. It was never on any of the big Flash sites. I think I played it on some weird local Australian kids site. The game is still very much playable, and the freedom it gives you to mess around with the attendees of the party is so awesome. There's plenty of ways to spook, scare, and terrify, but be careful. You want to make sure they're just scared enough. Now, I don't want to seem like a pretentious Flash game enthusiast here, but the next two games up on this list were also something I never saw anybody play in school. Those two being the Warfare games, Warfare 19 and Warfare 1944. Both of these games had the same gameplay, so I'm lumping them together here. As the titles of the game show, these take place in World War I and World War II respectively. These are side-scrolling strategy games where you take command of an army and attempt to send soldiers over trenches to attempt to take your enemy's land. Personally, I'm a huge World War history buff, and finding these games in middle school seemed like a dream come true. They were never blocked, so I was always able to take part in taking enemy trenches and declaring victory. There were tons of different soldiers you could send out on the battlefield: riflemen, assault troops, snipers. You could also utilize more impressive weapons like armored cars and tanks, as well as heavy artillery, and my personal favorite, mustard gas. Don't call me a war criminal, just play the game. Dropping mustard gas on an enemy trench and watching every enemy soldier fall so your boys can advance is sickeningly satisfying. This game was endlessly replayable too. You had campaigns for British and Germans in 1917, and Americans and Germans in 1944. When I couldn't play Battlefield 1 because I was stuck at school, this was my immediate alternative, and even so at home I snuck in a few rounds of this game. If you like military history games and think you have the strategic brilliance in order to win the war, give it a try. This next game admittedly was a very late addition. The script was finished, the audio was recorded, and Jiff was about to begin editing until I remembered one game so good it woke me up in a cold sweat. Like Ahab himself, I was reminded of the great white whale, Moby Dick. This game flipped the script. Instead of hunting the pale monster, you are the monster. You play as Moby Dick and terrorize anyone who attempts to enter your ocean dominion. It's a long, drawn-out game where the longer you survive, the bigger you get. The game is also extremely challenging. In the later stages, you only find massive ships waiting to harpoon you at the surface. A little detail I loved about this was the amount of damage you took and how it was shown on the whale's body. I just thought the scars were so cool. Now, this is a game I come back to often, and call me Ishmael, I can't believe I just forgot all about it for this video. Just be careful playing this game, lest ye be willing to be haunted by the white whale. I got my personal deep cuts out of the way, so I want to give a quick shout out to possibly the most famous Flash game of them all, the Impossible Quiz. This quiz truly seemed impossible, and this was one of those games every kid tried to beat. The quiz was basically one big joke and would reference different memes, internet references, and even itself at times. The game's art style was standout as well. It was particularly ugly and looked very old school internet even then. It felt somewhat ancient, and its title including the word impossible made us feel all the more determined. It's hard to explain why we were so drawn to the Impossible Quiz. The impossibility factor definitely plays a big role. You only have 3 strikes for getting questions wrong, and after playing over and over, you begin to notice that it's basically a speedrunning simulator. I remember I got pretty far in this as a kid, but I was never able to actually beat it. I knew plenty of kids that did though. This game was constantly blocked, but it was so popular that we never really had any trouble finding it. I remember a time in 8th grade where I was in the library after school trying to beat this, and I just never did. Maybe one day I'll stream it and make the Impossible Quiz possible after all these years. There's one final game I'd like to talk about in this video. It kinda stands on its own because it wasn't super popular, but I also knew a bunch of kids that played it. That game was Plasma Burst 2. Plasma Burst was a kick-ass side-scrolling shooter with really cool physics built in. You jumped and shot throughout levels with different customization and weapons. It felt like a Flash game version of Halo, and even though I was in middle school from 2014 to 2017 when Halo was not what it used to be, a Flash version of Halo was still something that blew our minds. I pumped hours upon hours into this game, and yet I never beat this one either. I remember having more fun playing around with the actual physics of the game than the actual gameplay itself. It was so satisfying to blast enemies into squibs, and you could even fight your friends. This game had an awesome multiplayer. Granted, I'm not too sure how in-depth it was at the height of its popularity, but I still played this with my friends on plenty of occasions. My friends and I even had access to a free multiplayer-only version of Halo Combat Evolved that we used to get the entire class involved in. But oftentimes we just hang out on Plasma Burst, which is such a testament to how cool this game actually was. I'm curious how many of you have memories of Plasma Burst, because like I mentioned, it was such a strange mix of popular and underrated, at least at my school. Flash games were truly something special. The nostalgia I, and I'm sure all of you have, will be something we never forget. These games that seem to be just things to pass the time or slack off in school now remind us of simpler times. These games were well constructed and had so much love and attention poured in, and even though most of us were children playing these, we could tell just how much love they had baked into them. It was such a sprawling Wild West of games, and that exploration is something I don't think we'll ever see again. I know some of you are probably screaming at your screen that I'm ending the video without talking about your favorite Flash games, but this is a topic I'd love to revisit. I left out so many classics. I was never a big fan of the Stickman style games, but I know those were extremely popular. Sites like Addicting Games and Newgrounds I used on occasion, but they were never my go-tos, and I wanted this video to be a bit more personal than usual. You may now think that my personal favorite picks are terrible or perfect, and that's exactly what I want you guys to use this comment section for. Gush about your memories and favorites that you haven't thought about in years, or games that you still play every day. If this does well enough and it's something you guys want to see more of, definitely comment down below and maybe your pick will be included in the next video. Let's get high off that Flash game nostalgia together. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to like the video and subscribe so we can hit that 200,000 sub goal together. If you want to keep up with us in between videos, make sure to check out our official Instagram and Blue Sky account. They are going to be both linked in the description below. Make sure to stop by our Discord. It truly is the best place to chat with us and hang with other Debunk enthusiasts. If you really love what we put out, make sure to check out our Patreon, Debunk Plus. It's only $1 a month and it grants you full access to everything on there. Supporters get script PDFs, videos early, and other random stuff we decide to put up, and more. As always, my name is Seth from Debunk File. See you guys next time. Bye.